the way we're growing food right now doesn't make any sense. And we need to change that. And if we don't change that, we're going to run into problems where there's going to be consequences, and we're just starting to feel them right now. But if we continue on this path, it's just going to get worse. I think that we've accepted convenience at the cost of almost everything else. And I think we've lost what it feels like to actually eat something that's just come out of the ground, that's actually picked when it's ready, when it's actually fresh. I think there's this growing need and this idea, people are realizing that if we're outsourcing absolutely everything in our lives, that creates a certain level of uncertainty, that we need to be producing things ourselves. We need to be growing things, we need to be making things. And so by having a business that grows food and a variety of food locally means that people can access food all the time, year round, regardless of what the circumstances are. I think what I want people to know most is that the whole reason for this, the purpose is to do something good. We see a need and we want to leave the world slightly better than how we found it. Sometimes there's this cognitive dissonance between our values and what we do, particularly in the grocery store. We don't really think about what it takes to get the food there, right? We don't think about how highly processed our foods are, that our food is being treated with sprays and chemicals. And I don't think we think enough about how that impacts us, how that impacts other people. I think if you were faced with it, I think we would behave differently if we knew what we're trading off of that convenience. And I guess we don't want to go down without a fight. We want to challenge that. We want to say, yes, there's difficult things in the world. There's suffering and there's things that we can't change. And people are at their limit. They can't donate any more money to a charity. They can't advocate any more of their time because they're busy and money's tight. But what we're offering here is all you have to do is like something we post, share it with somebody. Instead of going to a chain restaurant, come join us at ours. And those are small things, and they may not seem like big things, but by supporting what we're doing here, you're supporting an entire movement. We're a family business. We're my best friend and I are the owners. We started this because we had a dream. We wanted to do something. He wanted to make amazing food. I wanted to be a part of this agricultural movement, and something like that only works if there's people behind it. I think what we're trying to do is important. I think what we're trying to do will not just help the community, but just help the way people see food and the way they see farming. We want them to come to our restaurants and see what happens when you care so much about something. When you really care about everything from the seed you choose to how you're growing your carrot, to how you're treating your staff, to how you're putting that on the plate. We give everything to what we do. And we want to share that with people. And, my dream is to see that place full, to see the lodge just bustling with people. I want to see the community there. I want them to know what we're doing. I want them to share it with us, because what we're doing is, it feels big to me anyways. It feels we're doing something special, and we want other people to be a part of that. What people would be surprised to learn, I think, is that our prices are really competitive. We for our burger at the lodge, maybe $1 or $2 more than a chain restaurant. Our steaks, our pastas, maybe $1, $2, $3 more than another place that has a name, an international corporation. But the difference is, we're making everything from scratch, everything by hand, sourced locally. The chefs make their own butter, their own sauces, their own breads, their own pickles, right? And for $1 or $2 more, you're getting an insane difference in quality. People don't realize how much comes out of a bag. People don't realize how much comes frozen, right? And then I don't think they realize just how hard it is to make things work when you're not doing that. But it's so important to us. It's so important to us that we're not pulling things out of a freezer, that we're not pulling things out of a bag, that we're making things ourselves, because that's how we used to do it. This is how we used to grow food. This is how we used to cook and prepare food, and we've lost that, and we're trying to find that. We want to bring that back into people's lives. Our main strategy is to grow everything that we possibly can on the farm. If we can't get something from the farm, we do look to other local sources, but we do our research. For instance, when we deal with seafood, we're looking at, what are their fishing practices. There's some regulatory bodies that make sure that the fisheries are ethical, and same thing with our livestock. We'll actually go and visit a farm before we buy anything from them. We want to know, how are those animals cared for? How are those crops cared for? So we make sure that whatever we're bringing into the restaurant meets our standards and meets our values. Long term, I would like to share what we've done here. I imagine every community surrounded by these little farm restaurants where, imagine Langley and Maple Ridge and Abbotsford, and then maybe on into the prairies and Eastern Canada, where there's these small farms growing a variety of crops, each with their own little restaurant. Imagine instead of driving into a city and all you see is, chain after chain after chain, or 2 or 3 of the same restaurant in the downtown. Instead of that be where people go to dine, they actually looked outside their community. They drove 10 or 15 minutes outside their city, and they could choose between dozens of different farm restaurants, each with their own cuisine, each with their own style. For me, that just seems like it's kind of amazing to think about, that a city surrounded by farms and restaurants. Because not only does that give people this really incredible dining experience, it's also really good for their local economy. Instead of putting money in the pockets of large corporations or multinational food corporations, you're putting the money right back into the community.